Hi everybody, Nick Blazer here with another position analysis video. This week's is a second roll position, so a lot of you probably know this one already. But maybe beginners looking at this struggle a little more with the concept here. I can imagine plenty of people starting out with the game not having the right idea in this one. And so I wanted to take a little time to kind of cover a little more in depth some of these like early game ideas and second roll ideas. But yeah, if you like this kind of content, leave comments and feedback. I'm always trying to make these videos better, so that really helps me out. Um, yeah, let me know what kinds of positions you want covered. You can send them to me if you want me to talk about something. That's a lot of inspiration for me to cover a topic. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, help me get out to more people, please, so we can keep growing the game. But this one, we'll bring the analysis window up real quick here. If you haven't seen before, you should hit loose on the 4 and split along with that, sure, instead of playing to a deeper point. We can talk about the subtleties of that too, since it's pretty big here. But hitting is pretty thematic. In Michi's opening concepts book, he writes about fighting for high points. Um, but there's a lot of ideas going on here. And the early game is like most difficult to talk about just strategically because it's hardest to see the future of the game and where it's going to go and where we're trying to get. And so there's so many different paths available that it's hard to see exactly what the outcome of being hit is beyond like maybe a checker is going to go back and we're going to lose the race and we're close in the race at least if we don't. But we have a lot of work to do before we're into any sort of racing position. And we're at a lot of risk of being down in more ways than that too. So so the first like one key concept that can help you here is that we're technically down in the race after our play if we just split. And when we attack, we actually even out the race and end up slightly um, like dead even in the race, so slightly behind because our opponent's on roll. If you want to think about it that way. So we take a big step closer to the race at least, and we can see in all the winning percentages here that regardless of what we do, we're going to be slightly behind in this game. So that kind of helps us think about it too. That there's no like immediately winning play, and probably we can see that. Um, One other smaller concept here is that our opponent has this builder on the 9 point, or on the 16 point as the board is labeled, the black checker on the 16 here. That means that if we don't hit our opponent, that they're going to have a full roll to make an offensive point and put us in an even worse position, have a slight board advantage too. And when they don't do that, they're likely to be able to roll like a 3 or a 4-1 is going to be a bit of a dilemma to make an anchor, right? So when we leave our opponent alone, they're going to make some sort of major structural improvement and likely still have the racing lead, which is a big problem. And we're just hoping to try to catch up by building after we split and play down or making an anchor or something like this. So we're fairly clearly behind there. So is it too much risk? Is the big question that I think beginning players tend to have to hit loose. Why would I do that when I risk having a third checker sent back? I'll be way down in the race, and most of my opponent's rolls are going to hit me. How can I make a play like this? So if we look at the final position here and kind of think about how this can go, sorry, after the hit. Um, so we can see that any 4 from the roof is going to hit, so that's going to be 11 numbers. In addition, a 5-3, 3-1, 2-3, and a 2-2, potentially a 2-1. I forget how many numbers that was, but we sailed way past half. 18 of 36 is half of them. So usually we're going to get hit. So how can that be worth it? Well, we just gave a bunch of things that it's going to prevent our opponent from doing, right? So that's a big piece of it. Um, but another way to think about it is that the 1/3 to a half of the time when we're not hit, well, we've made a big improvement here. Now we might get to make the 4 point before our opponent makes a board point, and we might be like a roll ahead of him in structural development and have a little advantage there. So sometimes we can come out ahead after this play, which is a major part of this. We also improve one of the biggest liabilities of our opening position, which is the stack of checkers on the 6. We take one off of there and try to use it more effectively. Ideally, we make a high point with that, but when hit, it might help us just make an anchor on the other side, and we have a little better distribution anyway. And that's like the really big thing about this position is that when we get hit, we're actually not doing as bad as it might seem. Um, so if we just give our opponent something like a, if we go ahead and hit here and split along with it, and our opponent just rolls a 3-1 and hits something like this, and we're on the roof, I guess, how bad do you think we've gotten here is the question. We could see we were 45% after just splitting and playing down. Are we a lot worse than that? What's going on here? And so if we look at it, we're actually still, I mean, maybe our gammons have gone up, but we're not losing that many more games after being hit, which might be a pretty big surprise that it like basically doesn't matter that we get hit in the early game. And this is a concept of like purity and strategic thinking that takes a long time to develop in this game, but understanding how being down 25 pips cannot be that big of a disadvantage, in the early game. Well, the issue is that Black still has a ton of work to do to bring home this winning race, and there still could be a lot of blot hitting here. And we have a third checker now to help us make an anchor, and a lot of our entering rolls are going to make some sort of defensive piece here that or asset here that's not going to allow our opponents to just blow us off the board, right? So we're going to have that forever. And we can just sit on that and try to develop our front position and make some sort of problems for the back checkers to escape um, while our opponent tries to bring this home. They're so far from being able to cash in on a winning race that we can afford to do something like this. Oh, I can see I'm cutting off the no double take there a little bit. Okay, I got something to mess with for my filters on this next time. Um, but yeah, so I hope it helps to see that before, like even when I guess the worst case scenario after hitting, we're really doing pretty okay. It's sort of surprising. If we roll some like one of our best rolls, like a 5-3 or something like this, and come in and anchor, we're way down in the race, but we have this asset, and our opponent now has no offensive game plans other than racing. They need to just consolidate and bring this checker or bring their checkers around to play a racing game. Is their only thing. They can't prime us anymore. They can't really attack us because we always have this anchor to enter in on. So, what do you think Black's winning chances are here after we just enter there? Um, this is almost like pretty close to a 50-50 game. Black has a small advantage in that they're winning the race and have less checkers back. But all we have to do is make a board point or something like this, and White can be winning this game very easily. And this is a pretty likely outcome after we get hit as well, that we make some sort of high anchor here. If somehow instead we make the 21 point, we're still doing really well. But I mean, White's or Black's got a little more equity in this game. Um, so yeah, I hope that this helps you see that hitting loose in the early game, it really it can go a lot of different ways. There's a lot of game left to go. And a high anchor game is very strong in backgammon, even when you're losing the race, until a lot more development has happened. And so in the early game, to just establish that and have the positional side of the coin is not very bad. It takes some practice to learn how to play this out, that we're going to do a lot more hitting and a lot more pure play. We're going to be very unlikely to make deep points while we try to contain these checkers, and we're going to focus on getting to play the more strategic backgammon, while Black's going to be a little focused on like landing points and trying to escape safely. Um, but if you can start to develop your feel for how to play these asymmetric games in the early game, then you're going to be a lot more comfortable as well going for the hit and knowing how to play both sides. If you get away with it, how to ride that advantage home. And if you don't, how to play an anchor game from there and make sure that your opponent can't cash in here. But you've got a lot of options in the early game. So that's kind of mainly what I wanted to point out with this video. Let me know if that helps you understand it all, why you can fight for high points and hit loose. If you can kind of see how this can go forward and be so difficult for Black, why it's not a big deal to be down this much in the race. It's tricky stuff, but yeah, with practice you can get a feel for that for sure. And yeah, send more interesting positions to work on my way, and I'd be glad to do videos on them. Thanks everybody. Bye for now.